Here we are on beautiful Jones Street.
You saw Ted Jones.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the Ted Jones World Podcast, July 4th, 2 p.m. You guys are checking out the merch. We got it. We have the 6th annual Ted Jones World Vegan Hot Dog Eating Contest here at the Comedy Shop, 167 Bleecker Street. I'd say we probably have 2 more slots available. I ideally would like to keep it at like 8 to 10 people, just so it's manageable to figure out how many people are eating which hot dogs. But honestly, people ask, they're like, Ted, why do you want to do a vegan hot dog eating contest? And I'd say, because everybody else is doing a regular hot dog eating contest. Hopefully one day this thing will be as big as the Nathan's hot dog eating contest that they do in Coney Island. And that's why, you know what, we're doing it July 4th, 2 p.m. We're going to be competing with the hot dog eating contest. But as far as I know, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, this is probably the longest running vegan hot dog eating contest there is. You know what I mean? For the most part, I don't think anyone's done 6 vegan hot dog eating contests. So this will be great. July 4th. It is a free event. Come support, come hang out. And if you do compete, we have these shirts that I just showed you guys. Ted Jones World 6th Annual Vegan Hot Dog Eating Contest. And they will also be available for sale. There will be $30. And it's going to be pumped. As you guys are watching this is the 499th episode of the Ted Jones World Podcast. In August, it will be 6 years that I've been doing this podcast. And I feel like I've had so many different life transformations. You know, they say like a male's brain really isn't developed until like 26, 27. I would argue that maybe even 28. And it's so interesting to like look back 10 years and think that I knew, or I thought that I knew everything. For those of you who don't know, I was promoting clubs for years. So I'd be out from the hours of 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. drinking like 5 or 6 days a week. I was working at my dad's company, but a lot has changed, especially in the last year, for those of you who don't know. And I'm speaking to the people who have not yet listened to the Ted Jones World Podcast. Maybe this is your first episode, but if you've listened more than once, hello. Thanks for coming. The iterations of the podcast that we've done, it started with producer Pat at my dad's house in the basement. We were doing it once a week during the pandemic on Zoom. And then, and then also, the first 2 vegan hot dog eating contests were on Zoom, and they were mostly, the guys who were competing were mostly my buddies from college. And like I said, so in the last year, I think a lot has changed. I'd say over the last year, I've probably done stand-up comedy. I mean, I do note every single time when I do it, but I'd say at least 400 times, probably more than that, actually, I'd say. So over the last year, stand-up comedy has picked up, and I'm trying to still figure out the direction and my voice on stage, because May 15th was like my 4-year stand-up anniversary in terms of doing it full time. You know, like before that, I was working at my dad's company. And people always ask, like, how many years, Ted, have you been doing stand-up comedy? And I never really know what to say, but for sure, seriously, I'd say for 4 years. And over like the first 2 years of stand-up comedy, I probably did maybe 300 sets, and 50 of them were in my living room. Does that even count? Like, I used to do stand-up comedy sets in front of my mirror. And if you're just starting comedy, I would recommend doing that. And while it's definitely a lot more valuable to do open mics, you can get a lot of time just doing stand-up comedy, looking in the mirror. You can only work so hard in front of your mirror. And also, so I ran into Andrew Schulz's manager, and Andrew used to run shows here at the Lantern Comedy Club. Apparently he was here a few days a week for years. He'd run shows and basically kind of doing the same thing that I'm doing here at the Comedy Shop / Lantern. And the reason why it says the Lantern Comedy behind me, this is the artwork from what I know, from what the owner told me. This artwork has been here for like around almost 20 years. And then upstairs, there's a room called the Comedy Shop. So if you guys have ever seen my social media clips, some of them will be the stage upstairs that says Comedy Shop, and then some will be down here that they have a new sign over here. I'll show you guys. I popped up a picture of it right there. But anyway, I ran into Andrew Schulz's manager, and for those of you who follow stand-up comedy, when Andrew Schulz released his Netflix like 2.5 months ago. Apparently he hasn't done stand-up since then, which is crazy. I was like, oh, Andrew should come do spots. The Lantern's back open. And then he said he hasn't been on stage in 2.5 months. And that for me was enlightening because in the last year, I just finally from Memorial Day weekend took 3 days off from stand-up comedy. And that's the longest I've gone in a year, which is crazy to think. But in my trips to Los Angeles and Miami, those are the two places I've been where I've taken a plane. Well, Chicago, but I went there for stand-up comedy. But those are the places that I've been for stand-up comedy specifically. And those 3 days, yeah, that was the longest that I've taken off in a year, which is crazy. And to be honest, and to be real, I didn't miss stand-up comedy so much. I feel like it was a good break. I got on stage last night at Margarita Monday. There was a packed house down here. There was probably 35, 40 people. And I felt great. Did 15 minutes. It was amazing. I really enjoyed my time off. I think that, and it's important to take time off, but being in stand-up comedy in your first 5 to 6 years, they say you got to say yes to every single opportunity. But in a circumstance like that, I was just happy that I, took a break. But I'd say down here, in talking to the manager, he says you could fit about 55 people down here, and then you could fit 60 people upstairs. So it just depends on the room. But Friday and Saturday night, we get both of these rooms popping. It's Saturday night especially. You'll get a 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 11 p.m. And then by that time, I tell you what, I'm exhausted. Sometimes I'll do the midnight. But the most amount, I've done 8. Have I done? Yeah, I've done 8. No. I think I've done 7 shows here on one Saturday. And so that includes the 1 p.m. brunch, the 6 p.m., the 7 p.m., 8, 9, 10, 11, and midnight. Oh my gosh, I've done 8 shows here in one night. That is crazy. 7 or 8. I'd have to look back at my notes. I'm pretty sure it's 7. And then Luca, who's been on the podcast, who helps run the shows with me sometimes, I think he had the record for that day because he did an extra show at this place. But it's been great, especially since like the last 3 months is really when both of the rooms have been open. They haven't been open like this for, I don't think, ever. And this is the... Oh, by the way, I'm addicted to seltzer. I know you guys probably know this already, but I have like 4 or 5 of these puppies a day. They're so gracious that they give it to me for free up there. But I tell you what, my seltzer budget, it's got to be at least $30 a day. It replaces my weed budget. So one addiction to the other. But what was I saying? What was I just talking to you guys about? But, oh, yeah. Okay. But this is the only place in New York City other than the Comedy Cellar that I guess there's one other place uptown, the Comedy Village, that has 2 rooms that would be bumping at the same time. But this is one of the only places where you can have 2 sold out rooms. And the interesting thing about the Comedy Shop is that this room is so different than upstairs. I always tell people it's like 2 different clubs. Same audience, but just 2 different clubs, right? Like you'll have an 8 p.m. and a 9 p.m. show. You'll have 60 people upstairs and then 55 people downstairs. The show upstairs, the audience can be dead. And then the show down here, it could be popping, or the other way around. You could do the same set. You could do one 10-minute set upstairs, bring the exact same set downstairs, and it might not work, which is crazy. And if you think about stand-up comedy, that's really the reason why some of these great comics want to drop into shows without people knowing that they're dropping in. Because if some of these great comics go to shows and then their whole audience is there, the whole audience is ready to laugh and they already like the comic. So that's really, I think, why a lot of stand-up comedians would like that their name is not going to be announced, because they want to make sure that the 15 minutes that they've been working on or something in general is working on an audience that isn't their biased fans, stuff like that. You're seeing way more arena comics that you ever have. There's only been so many periods of... There's only, in the history of stand-up comedy, there's only really been so many people. Like, there's been a handful of people that could sell out arenas, and now it seems like it's more common. I mean, it's obviously not common to do, but now there's like a number of comics that are working in New York City that can sell out arenas, when back 25 years ago, it was like Andrew Dice Clay, maybe Jim Gaffigan, but that might have been a little bit before he was able to sell out an arena, Jerry Seinfeld, and then like, I don't know, not that many more. But now guys like Sebastian Maniscalco and Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, Theo Vaughn, Andrew Schultz, Kevin Hart, Nate Bargatze, Matt Rife. There's a number of guys that could sell out arenas, when before you couldn't even really do that. What's up, dude? Say hola. Okay.
Gracias.
Are you here today? Are you leaving?
Yeah, I leave it.
All right. I'll see you soon. Have a good day. And the staff who works here is unbelievable, by the way. They're amazing. They make me the best food. And apparently they're adding vegan options. I tell you that. That's great. That's all places need at least like 3 or 4 vegan options. I'm not a foodie, as I've spoken about before, but it's nice to go to a place and not have to order just lettuce on a plate, you know? And I hate going to a place that has pasta, but I don't really know if you're able to truly make pasta without egg. You know, that's something that I've always kind of thought about. I'm like, how are you supposed to, or why do you need to put egg in pasta? Is it like the consistency of the noodles? I've thought about that. But there's chickpea pasta, and I think being in New York City, it's so much easier than anywhere else in the world to be vegan. And I saw that 2025, New York was ranked the #1 vegan city in the world, which is great because before it used to be the UK. And when I go to places like Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, they do have vegan options. But I imagine once I start going to other places in the country, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Actually, when I was in Rhode Island, I did a comedy club there. Or actually, I don't know why I said I haven't been to that many places. I went to Rhode Island, Florida, but I mentioned that, and then New Hampshire. But a place like Rhode Island, the comedy club didn't have one vegan option on the menu. Isn't that insane? Like no hummus, no guacamole. Everything had some sort of meat in it. So I think it starts in the city and then it just infects outwards. So everywhere else will start having vegan options. And then there's this new plant-based milk called Holy Milk, which is going to be available in stores shortly. And the creators of it sent a couple packages of it, and it's amazing. It's like cashew milk. And I think just in general, it's gonna start to be easier to make plant-based foods where it's not as expensive. Because now I think the real issue is it's super expensive to make plant-based meals. You know, like I saw this episode of Shark Tank last night, and these people who are making mushroom bacon, to buy a pack of mushroom bacon was like $8.99. When you compare it to the pig bacon, it's like, you know, what is it, $2.99, $3.99. So I think once the costs come down, people will be more likely to try plant-based foods. If it works for your wallet, if it makes dollars, it makes sense. So I understand that. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to spend 3x to buy something plant-based and then theoretically isn't as good. I'm not saying that vegan foods aren't as good, but I'm just saying like if you want other people to try the foods, then it's got to be great tasting, which is funny because people on the other end will ask me about the vegan hot dogs and they'll be like, Ted, well, what's in the vegan hot dogs? You know, it's like, it's soy protein, but people never ask what's in the sausage tube meat hot dogs. You know what I mean? And then I think the start for people across the world, probably because it's a very beginning of the day type of beverage, is coffee. Once people start putting the plant-based milk in coffee, I think that's gonna change the dynamic. You know, once people find an oat milk, an almond milk, cashew milk that they like to put in coffee instead of the 2% milk, whole milk, or skim milk, that's gonna really change the ball game. I think so. That's the first step, is just changing the things in the morning, and then you know we got to do a better job of the burgers and other items of food that people enjoy eating. You know, but once we start to do that, then I think it'll be different. I don't know how successful all vegan restaurants are able to do now, because they're kind of going towards a corner of the market. You know, it's like opening an Italian restaurant. Everybody loves to eat Italian food, but if a vegan goes into an Italian restaurant, it's going to be more difficult for them to choose what they actually want to eat. And then what's the percentage of people that eat plant-based foods? Not that many people. So I feel like that makes sense. What's up, bro? Open mic?
Yeah.
Upstairs.
Oh, weird.
You got it.
Sorry for interrupting.
You're good, bro. I'll keep it in. As you guys are tuning into this, or as we're releasing this, we have game 4 of the New York Knicks playoff game tonight. I don't know how it went because I'm sitting here with you guys and I'm not as ahead of time as you guys are, but it's insane how well the city has received the Knicks. You know, it's great to see, but At the same time, I feel like putting up these Knicks signs on the street before the Knicks even made the finals is like, is that bad juju? I don't know. I guess we'll see. But it's great to it's great supporting the Knicks, and you love the New York sports culture. It's actually insane to see the camaraderie that all the Knicks fans have. And it's good to see because the Knicks haven't won in so many years. It'd be exciting to see the Knicks win. We'll see what happens with that. So also, I don't know if you guys have heard of this Google's VEO 3. It's like this AI thing that basically you can tell a story and then the graphics on it are unreal. So theoretically, okay, you could say I want a comedy show with 100 people and a really funny comedian on stage telling jokes. And maybe the jokes aren't super funny, but crafted by AI, and it just looks like a comedy special, which is insane to think that the simulation of AI is becoming so real that it looks so real. And if you think about it on a whole scale, you could be like, well, couldn't somebody out there be controlling us and telling us what to do? Somebody was like, well, yeah, this guy Ted Jones is going to have 500 podcast episodes and he's going to do this and then have this guest on this particular time. And then he's going to freaking forget his battery on this particular day. So he's going to have to go back to his apartment to get it. And then on this day, he's going to forget his memory card. There's so many traits that are unexplainable in the universe, right? Like you drive down the street, you'd be like, oh my God, this is so pretty. You look at the sky, this is pretty. The grass, like, oh my God, this looks unreal. The pyramids, this valley. I do want to travel to more places that are like national park type. Shout out to Giulio Gallerati, who I believe has almost gone to every single national park. This one of my boys who has done the podcast many a times. And yeah, you start to see things in AI that are like, all right, well, I think it starts to make more sense that everything here, I don't even know. I don't even know what to think about it. I'm sitting here alone in this particular basement and I'm like, what's going on here? I think you can you can see that as a whole. And like when you go to sleep, you have sometimes weird dreams and the dreams sometimes feel so weird. And it's like, how many galaxies are there? I never really think about life this deep, but as Google, this AI, AVO or EVO, whatever it's called, as AI has just become further, it's like, what is actually real and what's supposed to happen? I guess everything is supposed to happen at some particular time, but it's just weird to think, But like, is my life already planned out? Is your life already planned out? Were you destined to listen to the end of this episode to start thinking about things deeper? And I think so. That's what I would like to have a scientist on the podcast. That's what I would like. That's what's been missing from this podcast. I've never really had a scientist talking about infinite universes like Neil deGrasse Tyson. That would be a fun guy to have on the pod. But it's just weird. You start thinking about things like, why did that happen in particular? Why was that supposed to happen? And also, yeah, going back to what I was telling you guys, like the amount of times that I have gone to set up a podcast or set up to do something and spend so much time on something, it just doesn't end up working. And then like, I'll just have to redo it is crazy. My dad has a story from when he was in business school and spent hours writing a final paper. And this is before Save. So it was like when like things automatically save when you write them now on a Microsoft Word or you write it on your notes app, things automatically save. You don't have to go like file, save, or save as. Like, by the way, you guys don't even remember that. Some of you people who are listening who are like 25 years old, there was a time for years when computers first came out, even typewriters, not typewriters, but you had to go in and say file save and make sure that you were doing file save like every 5 minutes of work, which is crazy. Kind of messed up your flow. But my dad had a computer and he was working on some sort of paper for like, I don't know, I think it was 8 hours. Maybe my dad will correct me when he hears this, but working for 8 hours straight. And then all of a sudden the power turned off and then his computer turned back on, and then he had to rewrite the entire paper. How crazy is that? And obviously there are crazy things going on in the world that technology can't really help at this current moment, but I wonder how far in the future we'll go and see that technology can really save humanity. You look at guys who are in this same space, like a philanthropist like Mr. Beast, who's helping build wells in other countries and feeding people all over the world. Stuff like that is great. And hopefully one day I look to do things that are similar in that nature, just to help people. You know, people ask, like, why'd you get into stand-up comedy? And I think it's because I love entertaining. I love communicating with people. I love making people laugh. And I don't really know what else I would be doing if I wasn't doing this. I mean, like entertaining on a, just on a, I guess on a baseline level, and things that revolve around it, writing sketches, doing vlogs, doing this podcast, obviously, and just trying to be healthy, because I think like, being healthy is something that you could teach other people, because a lot of people are not healthy, and I think health is wealth, as they say. But I guess that was a little bit of a random tangent, but I think, you know what, I'm gonna leave you guys here, and just to think about life as a whole. It's weird. It's freaking weird, man. You know, I would have never thought that starting the podcast on Zoom in my dad's basement, then I'd be at a comedy club that I'm pretty much at every single night. So if you guys have never seen me do stand-up comedy, again, like I said, I'm here almost every single night as of now. I don't know when you guys are listening to this episode. Maybe you're listening to it a month later, 1 year later, maybe 10 years later, who knows? But I'm here a lot at the comedy shop, and I will especially be here Friday, July 4th, 2 p.m. for the 6th annual Ted Jones World Vegan Hot Dog Eating Contest. We will have a limited supply of these 6th annual Vegan Hot Dog Eating Contest t-shirts, but if you guys want one, again, it's going to be $30 unless you're competing in the contest. We can add maybe 2 more people to the contest. So as soon as you hear this, message me, Ted Jones World, tedjonesworld@gmail.com, ted at tedjonesworldpodcast.com. But yeah, I think that there's so many things that go on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes, yeah, even for me, people sometimes say to me like, oh, Ted, you're never depressed. You're always so happy-go-lucky. You know, whatever. I try and be that way, but, you know, it's not always like that. I tell you that. All right, guys. Well, this is the Ted Jones World Podcast, episode 499. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. See you soon. Peace.